Hello, and a very warm welcome to this webinar. My name is Lizzie Warren-Wilson, and I'm very happy to introduce to you the topic of AgenaTrader's new functions. I'm pleased to tell you that this webinar was actually originally held by Gilbert Kreuzthaler, the head of AgenaTrader, and was also accompanied by Andreas Walzer of CapTrader. Today I'm going to present the newest functions of the AgenaTrader software, or at least a part of the newest functions. When this webinar took place, we tried to answer all of the questions that arose, but if you do have any remaining questions after watching this webinar, I would ask you to please post them in the AgenaTrader forum, where my expert colleagues, as well as experienced users, will all be very happy to answer your questions. Before we get started, perhaps just a couple of tips. Right now you can see the CapTrader homepage. So if you're interested in the AgenaTrader software, then under the item Software, AgenaTrader, you can also find further information on this. Great, so let's get started. And of course, I hope you enjoy this webinar. So today, as I said, I'd like to present a few new functions to you, which we've recently built into AgenaTrader. The main functionality that I want to show you today is the backtesting, which we've just built in, so that you can see more or less how this works and how you can operate it, how you can construct the backtesting from a strategy, and how you can backtest from out of AgenaTrader++. So all of this will be the introductory, but also the longest part of this webinar. Then I would also like to briefly show you the action bar, what you can do with it and the new functions. So we've also added a few things there that are quite helpful. I want to explain a bit about the Quick Trader in connection with the DOM, what's new there and how you can implement it, because it's really very helpful when it comes to futures trading with level 2 data. Then I also want to talk about the futures calendar, since it's also new. We've built a new functionality into there too, for better recognizing rollovers and so on. And when rollovers take place, the best way for you to rearrange them. Up until now that was slightly inconvenient, but now we've tried to make this easier as well. And then at the end I also want to refer to the order templates in the basic mode, since especially with CapTrader I know there are still very many users who use the basic version and haven't necessarily switched to Andromeda yet. So for this I also want to show you a helpful feature for how you can put together a kind of strategy yourself, which you can then later use again as kind of a strategy. So I want to give you a taste of AgenaTrader++ of Andromeda. Great, so I would say let's get started with the backtesting. The backtesting tool, I'll close this up here now. You can already see it, but I'll reopen it so that you can see the best way to get to it. You can find the backtesting here under the main menu, New, and right at the bottom is Backtesting. So I have to say, today I'm showing you a functionality where within the next few days we're planning on coming out with a version 1.7 post-release. Here I'm already using the 1.8 version because there's a new function here that I want to talk about a bit later. I want to explain a bit more about it. But basically this is also the same functionality that you'll find in the 1.7 version, which will be released at the end of this week at the latest. Great. Okay, so let's get into the backtesting. You can see here that normally when you open up the backtesting, you get this window here. And then here on the left, we can see a list, which we are already familiar with. This is a list chart group, which of course you can edit completely normally, just like any other list chart group. Here we can see one section, which is for the equity curve, and this part here is for the chart. Now, for example, and this is mainly for people who can also do the programming themselves, but at the end I'll also show you how you can solve this using AgenaTrader++. So for example, we want to backtest a strategy. So up here you have the option of selecting the strategies. You can program several strategies, or have them programmed as you wish. So if we had more strategies in here, then we would have a longer selection of strategies. And here we always have the entry AgenaTrader++. So here you can select what you would like to test, which strategy. And here I can choose the time frame in which I would like to test this. For example, here we're on 1 minute. And just like in AgenaTrader, it's also possible to select several time frames here. These are always the time frames that are set as the default time frames. Just to remind you, let's go on 15 minutes here. So how do you get to this list? You can find that here when you go to Tools, Configuration Escort. In the action bar here, where you select the time frames. And here you can see several time frames. And this is where I can set my default time frames with which I would generally like to work. So if I would also like to have 10 minutes in there, then I can simply select 10 minutes here. So here I select minutes, and I write 10 in addition. And then in my selection list, I would also have these 10 minutes available. Here I click on Apply. And I'll get to what this means a little bit later. So here I click OK. And with this, I then also have the 10 minutes available to select here. Here you can see 10 minutes. So you can still change the settings. And if I would like to carry out backtesting on 10 minutes, I can select this here. And then I can also set this in my default selection list using the configuration escort. Here I can select various lists. On the one hand, here we offer the option to backtest individual values. If I now want to backtest a single value, then here I can enter, for example, the FDAX, which I'll select here. And here I then have the FDAX in this list. And here I could backtest this DAX. But I can also select an entire instrument list here. If I say, for example, I want to backtest the entire DAX 30, or the NASDAQ 100, and so on. Or one of my own watch lists that I've put together myself. So here basically I have the option to select whichever list I would like to backtest. So here we can now take the DAX 30 as an example, and the DAX 30 is then immediately shown in this list here. And up here I can choose which data source I would like, so where I want to get my data from. Here, for example, in this case, I enter data feed, and then I receive the data that I need via the data feed. Of course, it always depends on how much data the data feed provides me with. And depending on how much the data feed provider delivers to me, of course it may occur that I can't read enough data in the past. For this, we also have the possibility to select here that you would like the data read in from out of a file. I'll show you a little bit later what the format for that should look like. Or I can also actually have tick data read in. And the thing that we've tried to stick to is, as you can already see here, that you can make use of the MetaTrader format so that we can read in different data formats here. All of this is described in great detail and documented in the online help as to what these data formats can look like. But just to show you that now, what that looks like if you have it in this format, then here you can also read data in from various histories. But for now, let's stay with the data feed. And what I can now do here is decide where to start, i.e. from when to when I would like to organise this backtesting here. Of course, I'll get back to what the data feed outputs here. This is where it gets critical. Now, for example, I can enter that I would like to read data feedback here all the way back to the beginning of December 2014, for example. And then I would have the time frame here from the 1st of the 12th, 2014 until the 21st of the 1st, 2015 displayed for me and backtested. Great. So basically, here is where you make your settings. And here we'll also take a look at this MACD sample program, at what it actually does, and not just what exactly it does, but also how this strategy here comes to be. So this is more for people who can program strategies themselves. Here you can take a look at the programming, for example. I would like to go to the strategy, look at what it looks like. I'll quickly show you again how to get there. We go to Tools, Programming, Strategy, and here I can then see how this strategy has been implemented. So this here is a very simple MACD strategy, just that it has been self-programmed according to certain rules, and it then delivers a result. So this is for the people who really know how to program, or who already have a strategy that they would like to backtest. Great. Now we want to decide what we actually want to backtest. And here I have the option to select various values. And here I can now say that based on this MACD sample strategy, I want to either backtest this item or this value here, in this case BMW, and either just the one, or I want to let my backtesting run over this entire portfolio here. If I just want to backtest the one value here, BMW, then I click here, and you can see here that based on this MACD sample, certain trades have been generated in the chart. You can also see how quickly this actually goes. Just to show this once more, I'll go to the CBK, the Commerzbank, and I'll go back to the Input tab here. And of course I still have the same values set here, and I say Run on Selected Instrument. And now you can see that in the Commerzbank here, only a few trades have resulted from this strategy. And you can also see the equity curve, which is displayed here. So it shows how this strategy here has run its course, according to these criteria which are displayed in the strategy. So now, however, I can also say that I want to let this strategy run over this entire portfolio here. And to do so, here I select Run on Instrument Lists. So, we've selected the DAX 30, and now down here you can see how it works through the different strategies, how it works through each instrument. Here I now have a list, and so this here is the equity curve of the entire list that was outputted here, that was calculated. You can set various selection criteria here. So this here, as you can see, this is what has resulted for the entire account, for this entire list. And if I click through here now, then as you can see, the values won't change. Because of course the evaluation has been done for the whole list here. But if I want to look at individual values, then I can click here. And here I then see the different results for the individual values that have arisen here. And of course I can always come back to look at these individual trades here to see how they've progressed visually. And we'll get to all of these tabs a little bit later. And here I can then get an idea of which values work according to this strategy and which values don't really work with this strategy, and so on. And here if I see that, okay, this particular value isn't working well with this strategy, of course I could also remove these individual instruments here and then tweak it with different instruments to optimize the strategy and optimize the portfolio. So another thing you can do here is when I go to all, then here I see all evaluations of all values, so the results of all these values. And here you can also relatively quickly see which values basically end up in the positive and which end up in the negative. This helps you to visualize this here as well. And you can also hover the mouse over them, like this. And then you also see the different values that have been outputted. Or also the result of this instrument, which the backtest has outputted. So this basically gives you an overview of the backtesting and how the various results are going, how it looks overall. So here we can combine the whole thing to get the account, which you can then view. So I see that 1 or 2 questions have come through already from the chat. Perhaps I'll just briefly read them out loud and then I can try and answer them quickly. The first one is, what language are the strategies programmed in? And then, does all of this also work with entry or with stop conditions? So I'll get to these questions in just a moment. That's actually what I wanted to show right here, just to get back to this. In which language is this programmed? So when we go back to this MACD sample program, this right here is C#. So this is more or less the Agena script that we make available and which is also implemented, and it's based on C#. This means that the big advantage of C# is that it cannot be mistaken for MQL4 in MetaTrader or Easy Language and so on, whatever all the other languages are called. With C#, which is an open programming language from Microsoft, we also have the possibility to address external components. So in principle here I would also have the option to write something into a databank or wherever I want. Basically, using C# I have the full extent of the operating system right in front of me, which is why it's a great program, a very convenient programming language. It's not very complicated, but of course you do have to know it, just like any other, in order to be able to do any programming here. And I'll get to the condition escort and the setup escort in just a minute to show you how you can do this, how you can set that here. But first, some more general information when it comes to the functionality of the backtesting, which you can see here. We need to know how we can evaluate here and which things we can look at. Here you can then also do the following. Here we're set on the x-axis and we have the date set here, so you can see on which dates which trades took place, as well as which profit losses have been generated. But here you can also then set it to trades, so that you can see after how many trades you were in the positive or in the negative. And then of course again you can look at the individual values. Here you can see, for example, that the first few trades were negative, and then there were a few trades for DBK, the Deutsche Bank. The first trades were negative, and then these here were positive. Then there were a few more negative ones, then positive again, and so on. So here you can select which date they happened on, and you can also look at the number of trades here and see which one was positive and which one was negative. So you can observe this in a purely visual way here. Or you can go back here to all, and then you can see how many trades have been made, and so on. So you can evaluate all across the board here. So that was the one thing, and here we then also have the option of choosing all or chart. This has the following reason. When I go to chart here, and I move, for example, the chart itself, you can see that here the equity also suddenly changes. So as soon as you go to chart here, only this section in time that's visible in the chart is used. And you then see the equity curve for only this section. So how is this an advantage? Let's say, for example, here I have a phase, and I would simply like to look at, for example, how did it go during this exact time here? Then here I can use right mouse click to cut out a section here, like so. And then I see exactly what the equity looked like for the trades in this chart area I've selected. So right now I can't see the whole thing starting right from the beginning, since I'm not interested in all of this anyway. But instead I just want to look at a specific part to see how it went. And there are other things too that you can look at in more detail here. So here I have a specific part where I can see that I have either positive or negative equity. And I would simply like to look at how this part came to be. So which trades here in the chart are the ones that have brought about negative equity? And then I have the possibility to select this area in here. And then when I've selected this area, I see which trades were responsible for me arriving at this equity curve, this specific equity curve. So here you can select a wide range of options. So once again, if I select this here, then in order to also see this chart area here in the equity curve, the option chart has to also be selected. This means that then you always see whatever area is selected in the chart. You see it displayed again in the equity curve itself. So here to demonstrate this, you can see the selected area on the chart displayed again in the equity curve. What else can we say about this here? Let's talk about the DAX. Here we can see simply the various summaries that we offer here. Yes, and here I should also say that there are various options for displaying different graphs. So here, for example, I have daily net profit. And then in here I see the different profit and losses that I've generated on different days. And so on. Of course, I'm not going to explain each and every one in detail here, because all of this is described step for step in the online help. How it all works and what the individual values do. But here I have these different options so that I don't only have to see the profit loss here in the equity curve, but so that instead I also have different options simply to show the different metrics offered by us. So here you can see weekly net profit loss, total efficiency, trades profit loss, and so on. So you can select to have different graphics displayed. So back to the equity curve. What we have here in the summary is that you see what the different evaluations look like. So of course here you can get an overall idea. For example, here, what have I won or lost in all trades? And what do my long trades look like in total? As well as what do my short trades look like? So here I also have many other ways to evaluate this. Gross profit and gross loss, profit factor, and so on. Which means that here you can pick out the different values, which I won't explain in detail now, because you can also read up on all of this. So you can pick them out and see where the snag is in the backtesting, and what you can improve here, where it can be optimized. And perhaps also, since I just mentioned optimization is also planned for an additional phase of the backtesting, so that you can use a specific number of parameters to improve your strategy or optimize it. Basically, the system will choose the best parameters, which we'll take a look at here. So you can see it in the Settings tab. This is where you set it. Here you can adjust various settings, as you're probably already familiar with from other settings, such as for the indicators and so on. Here you can choose to set which inputs you want to use. Here you can see the various parameters of the MACD, the strategy which I've set here. And here, of course, you can then later also run the optimization on this, which allows the system to better determine whether the MA trend period for this MACD shouldn't be at 26, but instead will be better at, say, 27 or 38 or even 25. So this will be a possibility for a further version, so that you don't have to set the changes manually, but instead the system itself will be able to generate better parameter settings here. Down here you also have the option to set the buying power and the cash value, so what is in my account and what sum am I starting from. And here you can then set the various commissions, basically which commissions will be deducted. Of course, it really worsens the result if you enter the commissions here. You can enter it in percent, or you can enter a minimum value, so that you say at least $2, or whatever you want. And here you can enter a fixed value per trade, which is then subtracted from the result. And right at the bottom here, we also have another option for selection, namely for the settings. This is the standard, and we also have the advanced. These standard settings, although I've just noticed that this is spelled wrong, which we'll have to correct. So these standard settings are programmed in the same way that they are computed in MetaTrader, for example. If you take a look at this here, the entry and the exit, of course you need a specific rule in backtesting for how and when exactly the entry should occur here in the candle, and when the exit should occur. Of course, this can lead to it being falsely rejected. It's not really ideal, since a relatively simple set of rules is used here to calculate entries and exits here. And this usually goes by the closing price or open price of this candle. So this is only in the 1.8 version onwards, but here we're collaborating with the University of Aachen with Professor Stanislaus Meyer-Pape. So when you select this here in the 1.8 version, then there's a relatively complicated set of rules behind what these entries and exits really look like here. So what will then happen here is that this trade will no longer be opened here, but instead perhaps somewhere in the middle of the candle. And the close would also happen somewhere in the middle of the candle for this trade, closer to real conditions, more or less, which have been meticulously researched by the University of Aachen, so that trading can take place. So the results are then much more realistic, basically, than they are here in this standard method. You can compare the standard method with all of the normal trading tools, whereas the advanced method, which you can set here, will come much closer to what happens in real trading. So this advanced mode is still in progress here. I just wanted to quickly mention it and give you a taster, and it will be arriving with the 1.8 version. Here, getting back to these evaluations that we have, as we've already talked about, we have the various metrics in here, the various evaluation options that are available to you, which you can read all about in our detailed documentation in the online help. Then in this tab here we have the trading info, and here you can see which trades have been placed with Daimler, and here I can now click in this, and I then see the various orders that have been placed, and the executions that happened as well. Afterwards, you can always look at when which trade happened, what it looked like, and so on. Then here I also have the trade evaluations, which we're already familiar with from AgenaTrader. Just that here for the backtesting, it displays the various orders that have been received here, or also orders that have been cancelled, based on this set of rules. So here we have the various executions that have taken place, and now in this case, on this exact trade. So just to reiterate this, here we selected this chart. So when I've selected a certain part of the chart here, then I only see this part, including in these tabs here, which are shown here in the chart. When I then go to all, then here you see how these trades, these orders here, change immediately. And you then see all trades, all of the orders and so on that were carried out for Daimler in this time frame. So here again we have the graphic representation, and then here the entire tabular representation. Here I can then also select how I would like to have it displayed. So these are the various periods. So I can see profit loss, in this case, for example, month. I can see what December looked like and what January looked like. But I can also take a look at this more closely on weeks and on days, on different days of course, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. You can see whether certain strategies work better on certain days. Or you can see after how much time they were actually carried out, these trades. And you can also look on hours. And here you can see that generally, for example, at 9 o'clock or at 12 or 1300 hours, it may be that perhaps specific strategies work better at a certain time of day than at other times. So you also have these options here of carrying out backtesting evaluations. Great, that was all the basic information for the self-programming. And now to get back to a question that came up earlier. Is it possible to do this yourself with the conditions in the setup escort? Yes, it is. So here we have the option to select AgenaTrader++. And once we've set that here, then I can go to settings here. And here I see that it looks different. I can select an entry signal here. For example, I'll choose manual entry fast. I select this and then also see the bar by bar stop that goes along with it. I have a pivot fast. I haven't entered a soft trail. And here I see that I've entered a multiple risk 1 level as a target. And now, of course, you also have the possibility to test this out here as well. So I can go here and say run on selected instrument. So nothing happened with this. Okay, nothing can happen yet. One moment. I just have to change this since that was a manual setup. So let's try another one. Okay, so now I have UKSL there. Let's see what's going on with this. So here we have an initial stop bar by bar, Keltner channel, outside bar as a soft trail, and a multiple risk 1 level. So I can look at this again by going back to the input tab here. I go here to run on selected instrument, and it runs through it, and then it shows me for this exact strategy that I've set here, whether it's running positively or negatively. Here we have a negative result, and now I can do the following. So of course I can say, basically I would like to have this displayed on the whole list, run over the whole list. And again here I select run on instrument list. And now down here at the bottom you can see how the backtesting is being carried out for all of these values, for the entire DAX 30. So now it's finished, and now I can see that how I had it set up doesn't really make sense. It needs to be improved. So I can go back here to settings and can now adjust whatever I feel like changing. For example, now I would like to place a different initial stop, maybe a pivot fast. And here I would now like to use a parabolic as the hard trail stop. And maybe I would also like to use a pivot fast as a soft trail stop. And maybe I don't want to use a target, just as an example. So now I've changed this around, and what I now have to do is go here to save setup. I click on it, and from this point onwards, this setup is now saved. And it really is saved everywhere, as you can observe now in the setup escort. Let's go here to UKSL, and you can see that we also have the same settings here. So it really has been rearranged everywhere, and I can now run this test again here by going to input and saying run on instrument lists, so that it goes through the whole thing again. And then again here you'll see the result that arises from it. This means that when you have certain signals here, then you really can test absolutely everything using the backtesting tool. And now you can simply see how the individual values went. And again I have the option to pick which ones have gone well and which ones badly. Okay, so that was that for the backtesting in principle. And the next thing that I would like to show you, the next point up in the agenda, is the action bar. And some of the changes that we've made here in the more recent versions. Of course, we're already acquainted with the action bar. You can access it via Tools, Configuration Escort, and then Action Bar, where you can set various things, such as, for example, I would like to have certain dynamic indicators in the action bar. Here I would like to see different time frames in the time frame slider. Or I would like to have different instrument lists, long and short lists. Or I would like... So this, for example, is another new feature. Here I can place drawing objects that I use frequently, as well as price styles too. So here, candle chart, bar chart, and Heikin-Ashi. And for the drawing objects, the Fibonacci retracement and the chart ruler that I'm always using. So instead of always having to select them or always having to remember the hotkey, it's now possible for me to place this here onto the action bar. So if, for example, I now want to place an additional instrument here, and I say now I would also like to have Andrew's pitchfork in there, then I pick it out here, click apply, and now you can see that Andrew's pitchfork is also shown as an additional drawing object here. And I can do exactly the same thing with the instrument lists and the dynamic indicators. If I want to place a dynamic indicator into here, I go to Edit, where we're already familiar with this function. And here I then select, for example, that I would also like the arrow. I double click on it, say OK, click Apply again, and now here we can see I also have the arrow available. So we're already familiar with this, but now the new thing is that I also have these drawing objects in here. And now, however, you can also set this here individually. So on this futures list that I have here, I need more. Let's say I want to add an additional indicator. Since we got this question of whether you can delete a drawing object here. Yes, you can, by going here to indicators. And then I say I would like to take out this inside bar. And in place of this, I want to insert another into here. So let's add the reversal bars to this, doesn't really matter which. And here we have the option right here to say apply for all or just for this chart group, just for these charts here. So when I click here on apply, on OK like this, then I see that these settings now will only apply for these charts, for this chart group. So now I've set it like that so that it only applies to this chart group. And when I now go to this NASDAQ 100 list, then I see that the old settings are still in here. Whereas back here, we already have the new ones. So here you can set this individually. Okay, once more. Right mouse click here. Then I come back to this. And here I have the settings and can adjust them specifically for this action bar within this chart group. But it isn't synchronized across all the other ones. So I can set everything individually here. Let's also add a price style so that you can see it. I would also like to have the mountain chart. And here I say apply. And now here I can see that I have the mountain chart in there, but here I don't see it, since I only did it specifically for this chart group here. But now here you have to be a bit careful. If I say that I would like to introduce a whole new indicator, or whatever else, and I want it to be synchronized across all chart groups, then as soon as I've made an entry here, then this is generally no longer synchronized. So then it's a setting that really only does apply here. So when I now go to the configuration escort, then here the action bar, and I select, as you can see, I only have the 3 that I previously set. The mountain view is not in there. Now here, if I want to add, say, the equi-volume, here I say OK. Then I'm asked whether I would like to do this across all or just for the ones that haven't been altered. So if I do something here now and it asks me whether I would like to synchronize all, here obviously I can select yes or no. If I say no, then this one here is not altered, but the change that I've made here is. As you can see, only visible here, but not on this list. So you can control this here. You can decide whether you really want to synchronize these changes across all tabs here, or whether you want to leave the ones that you've altered yourself specifically, so as to not change those but just the others. Good, so back to another question. Is this saved in the templates? Yes, it is, of course. So when you save this template here, and then reopen it, then it should look exactly the same as it does here right now. So to answer the question, yes, you can file this away in the templates as one of the save templates. Great, so we've covered the action bar. The next point that I would like to address is that we have made several changes in the DOM, the depth of market, and also introduced the so-called quick trader, which is also quite helpful, mainly for futures traders. So let's go into it here on 1 minute. Let's get the FDAX. And now we are already familiar with the DOM, which of course was already included in the old version. Just that here we've now introduced several new functionalities. So here on the one hand, you can now see the various volumes in here, which are located at the individual price levels. In the DOM here, we always display everything that we receive from the data feed. So the second level data that our data feed delivers to the market, is displayed here. With some other tools, it's limited to a maximum of 5, but with us, everything is displayed. Here you can see what is in the bid and what is in the ask. But you can also see here that we've revised the times and sales list. So there are various different colours in here, and I won't explain to you in great detail what exactly each of them means, but instead I'll just show you how you can look up the meaning of the colours that we have here. So here we go. For example, here you can see above ask. So if the value has been filled above the ask, this is the background colour and this one is the foreground colour. So these yellow entries here were filled based on this criteria. Here you can see the green ones, which were filled exactly at the ask. The blue ones were filled exactly at the bid, and so on. So when you look at this table here, based on these settings, you can see where what happened on the times and sales list. And here you can also set the font and so on. So here you really have all the settings possibilities for the times and sales list. Up here we can see the balance. So here is where you can see overall what is located where the buy side's strong point or the sell side's strong point is. And here you can also always see how it's moving up here. At the moment it's pretty well matched. We have 150 on the buy side and 158 on the sell side. Although of course this can change. And if the buy side becomes stronger, or if the sell side is stronger, then here you can see how it's moving up at the top. This is so that you can also follow along in graph form, allowing you to see whether the buy side or the sell side is stronger according to the levels. Here you also see the various values, which have been accumulated in this case to 5 levels. So the total volume is for a specific range, in this case for 5 price levels, so that you can see where the orders are in general. If they are further away, then the buy side is stronger. But the orders are quite far away, so what's more interesting for me is more recently. What's closer right now, so that I can place my orders now. And another thing you can set is this, where I would like to have these levels. They don't always have to be on the 5th level, but if I go to Tools here, and then the Configuration Escort, so where do we have this? This is also new. Chart. Okay. I know where it is. It's here in the DOM properties. Okay. So here I can set the summary, where it should take place, and in this case at the moment we have it set at 5, so we see a summary every 5 price levels. But here I could set that instead I would like to have it on 10, so I enter 10 here and click OK. And now you can see that the summary here takes place with the larger distance in between. Here you can always see what the spread is like. Right here you can see the lines where the spread is. If you don't want to see the spread, since it pops up again and again here, then you simply click on this and the spread is no longer visible. So it no longer displays what happens within the spread. But here I can again choose to have the spread displayed once more, and then you see how the spread is moving. And here, of course, inside the spread I can also place my orders. So those were the basics of the DOM in principle. What we also have in here is when I would like to go into the market. Here, for example, when I place a market order in here, and for this I have to turn off the strategy so that we really are flat here. So I place an order in here, and you see in the market that it is immediately carried out. And then down here we have a number of buttons. Okay, so again, here we go into the market, it's carried out, and if I want to delete this position immediately, then here I have the option to go straight to flatten, and the position is then taken out of the market for me. So down here we have this option, but of course also all the other normal functionalities. For example, we can place a stop order in here, directly on the bid or on the ask, or I could place a market order from right here. So basically everything can be done using these buttons. And I can also place limits in there. So if I wish to, I can place the limit on the ask or on the bid. So here you can choose. I want to place the limit on the ask, then it's placed at the ask, now in the market, or again limit, and then you can see that the limit order has been placed under the bid here. So here we also have the option to carry out inside spread orders using these buttons. So we have flatten and the cancel all button. So this is basically a panic button when you want to take it all out. That's what cancel all is. And here I can also reverse a position. So when I go into the market here, now I'm long, I click on reverse and an opposite order is immediately placed, and I now have a short. So this here is really for fast trading. But now let's get to the quick trader. We can close the DOM. Of course, you can also do this in combination with the DOM. And here you can place orders into the market very quickly, and you can get a better feeling in the chart of where the market is currently going. With just the DOM by itself, I never know exactly where I am. For this, I have to be able to read the level 2 and the market depth relatively well. But here, when I trade from out of the quick trader, then here, for example, I see certain levels where larger orders are placed. And of course, from out of here, I can also do my short-term trading strategies. So here, one option is to say, I'll click on here, for example, and then here I have, one moment, I'll just enter this here, the default quantity. I always want to trade one value, one instrument. So from the FDAX, I click here, and then I have this exact stop order in here. It's placed right here. So from here I can enter my quantities, and so I say, for example, from now on I would like to trade 2. I click on here and 2 are placed for me at the right price level. But then I also have the option of doing this whole thing using AgenaTrader++. Of course, here again we have exactly the same click behavior as in the DOM. So clicking on here places a stop order short in the market. And when you click on here, then a limit long is placed. And here a stop long. And here a limit short. But now I can do all of this so that I can trade very quickly from out of the DOM, namely using AgenaTrader++. So I'll set AgenaTrader++ up here. There we go. And now here I can also select a strategy. So let's use this manual entry fast. Now here for this AgenaTrader++ strategy, let's go to Tools, then Set Up Escort, Parameters, Manual Entry Fast. And here I can also enter the order types. So I've set this one here to market. And what happens now is that since I've set this manual entry fast to market, and I want to enter here, for example, a long, then I click on here. Why is it on stop? 1 second. Just check this out. Manual entry fast. Okay, I had selected the right thing. Okay, very interesting. It could be that it's not quite the same in the 1.8 version. Okay, so really a market order should be set here right now so that you can actually trade very quickly from out of here. Okay, now from out of the quick trade I really can trade very rapidly. So with just 1 click I can place a setup into the chart and I immediately have the stop and the target in here. And the risk is also automatically calculated. So my risk criteria are automatically included here, which means that I no longer have to spend time calculating when I have the spread in there. But instead here I'm automatically in a strategy. And right here with just 1 click I can place an entire setup into the market. And this here is really helpful for people who trade at very short notice. Okay, so now we're out, we've been stopped, the trade is finished, but here I didn't have to waste time entering stop and targets and entry size and so on, but instead all of this was put in with just a simple click. So I see we have a quick question from my colleague, Andreas Walzer. Is it possible that this depends on where the mouse cursor is currently located, the fact that you have to click it exactly on the market if you're too high up, that it automatically places a stop order? Actually, it's supposed to set the stop automatically, so maybe there's something different here in the version 1.8, but I need to take a look at what's going on there. In general, when I enter into here, the market order should automatically also be placed. Okay, so as I said, here we have 1-click strategies, which allow an extremely fast entry. It seems like it's seen me right here and picked me up right at this point. So let's see how that develops. Okay, so this here was the DOM and the quick trader. Is there anything else to say here? Let's see, we're finished with the action bar. And also one more quick tip when it comes to the futures calendar, which is also quite helpful. and which we've also recently built in. So many people want to trade a large number of futures, not just the DAX, but also the Euro stocks, and many others here. I know a lot of people like to trade this large list of futures here. But what is, of course, always a challenge is the rollover, thinking about when is the rollover. It always gets interesting on these days. On the one hand, knowing when it is, and on the other hand, what's the best way to switch over to the next contract. So what we've just done is, in the futures calendar, which is pretty well known, when we bring it up here, you can see all of the expiry dates, the rollover dates of the different categories. And now we've expanded this by quite a bit. Here you can see that there are about 50 to 60 instruments in here. These are the most traded values on the market. And here you always see when the rollover is. And you also see which instruments are set correctly by means of this green colour. So green always means it's okay, but red would signify a problem. Now in the new version, we also have it set so that when you import the futures, then these will be automatically set to these rollover dates. This means that if in the future I go here to Instruments, Markets and Mappings, which we'll go to now, and I then import the futures here with TeleTrader or whatever. For example, the CME or the CME Mini. Then up until now, a random default expiry date was always set here, which meant that you always had to adjust all of the futures here manually in order for the expiry to be correct. However, in this current version, we have it so that this happens with the import. Let's take a look at the FDAX. So right now it has 03-2015 set. So if the FDAX were to be newly imported, then 03-2015 would automatically be set here. This basically means that you don't have to go along afterwards and adjust all the instruments here just to have the right expiries in the futures contract. So that's one thing that we've done. We've adjusted the import for these instruments here to fit the futures calendar. But when we take another look at the futures calendar here now, then we can see an additional column in here. And this one is the expiry. Here you can see how the current expiry is displayed. So for example, if you look at this 6M now, the Mexican peso, right now in this month it's green. We're always looking at the current month. So here we have a point in time, so the 19th of January, which of course is already in the past. So the reason that it's okay and is green is that the 19th has already occurred, but the Mexican peso is already set to 02-2015. So it's already been routed to this front month contract. Now here you also have the option by right-clicking to select the next upcoming expiries here. So you no longer have to go into the instrument to convert the expiry there, but instead you can do this from directly out of the futures calendar. Here you simply go through the various values that you would like to trade. I'll just quickly show you what would happen if I set an incorrect front month for the 6M here. So one moment, let's go to the 6M. And here I'll now set 01-2015 and say save here. Now let's open up the futures calendar again. Now as you can see it's red. And the reason it's red is that here the wrong front month is set. Now I would like to convert it. So I go here and say 02-2015. It's still red the next time I read it in, but now it should be on green, because now it's correct. And here you can now also see that the expiry is on 02/2015. So this is a very simplified way of handling the rollovers, a very easy way for me to set this here. I can simply look at what the next rollovers are. Where do I want to put it? This one's basically okay. And as soon as one has expired, I see the next options, and I select one of these, confirm. Okay, I would like to convert this already to 02/2015, say, and then this contract would just continue to run. So this here is another new feature that we've built in recently, which will be activated in the next version at the end of this week. A further function that I would like to show you. Okay, so we're finished with the futures. Now we're also almost finished with the entire functionality. And now what I would like to draw your attention to once more is the order templates. Namely, using the order templates from within AgenaTrader++. If now, for example, I'm trading a breakout, and I know that it's a long, and I'm going to want to trade it over and over again in different values, then here I have the possibility of setting it. One moment, we're still in plus plus right now. Sorry, let's switch off plus plus. Okay, so here, for example, I would like to set a stop order like this. Here I want to set a stop long and a stop exit, a sell stop. And up here I would like to have a target, for example, sell limit. Okay. And again, I use the usual mechanisms to link these to each other so that I can place my if done orders here. Although, where are they? I can't quite see them. Let's close the quick trader. I know, now none of them are in there. Again, buy stop. And a sell stop. And here a sell limit. Okay, so now I link these. So before they were only in the quick trader and they had disappeared. So we hold the Alt key, we click here and here, and then we have an if done order in place. We click here and here, and we have another if done order in there. Then hold down the Control key and click here and here, and then we have an OCO order in place. So here basically we've now defined a little setup for ourselves that we probably are going to want to use quite often. Here now we've seen that it's relatively complicated, or it normally takes quite a long time until you have a setup like this in place in the market. So I have to enter the entry orders, I have to enter the stop orders, and I have to enter the target orders. I then have to link these to each other, link these two together, and then link these two with one another. But now we have the possibility to save the whole thing here like this. I don't do this so often. Where is it? Order templates. And I say create. Although we can't see it right now. One moment. I just have to shift over a bit further here so that you can see how it works. So here's settings. Okay, let's do it differently. I just want you basically to be able to see what happens since the order disappears. Create account. One moment, I will just take a screenshot so that you can see further out and see what's going on. Okay, so now you can see it here. So here I'm on settings, then order templates, then create template from chart. And I've set this here. And when you do this here, then you should get a pop-up like this one here. I'll just bring it over, here we go. And here I say breakout long, for example. Okay, now I've saved this, so we'll repeat this once more. Right mouse click, settings, order templates, create template from chart. Then you will see this exact thing here again. Settings, order templates, this entry here. And then this same pop-up appears that we had up just a moment ago. Okay, great. So I set all of it up correctly, I saved it, and now I have the option, for example, when I go to another value, and if I say, for me, this is a similar situation again, here I want to go long. For example, I would like to apply this setup. Now here I have this option, so I select this template, and here when it comes to the proportions, we had a completely different price to the one before, with the DAX or wherever we entered it. So this is established here with approximately the same proportions as well. So here you can see that the entry order, the stop order, and the target orders have been set up for me. I no longer have to put this whole setup together manually, but instead I just place it in here once. I place the stop and the target where I would like it, and I click here, and I can wait to see whether the breakout happens or not. So if I'm trading a breakout, then I will place it up here, and so on. So here we have a relatively simple option for using the order templates to put complex strategies together. And this feature is also available in AgenaTrader Basic. If you're wondering whether you can set it up here so that for the stop down below you can display how much risk that is, this isn't possible because we're not in any strategy right now. Instead, these are just completely normal, simple orders, and here, unfortunately, you don't have this possibility. So that is only possible using AgenaTrader++, because you work with a strategy there, and there you can make these additional risk calculation settings. So profit calculations, stop and target calculations for risk are only possible in AgenaTrader++. It's not technically possible here. Since several customers were asking this, I just wanted to clear this up. They were asking, I would like to place my stop and can I see how many euros I would be risking with this, for example. So as I said, this is only possible in AgenaTrader++. Great, so basically we're finished for today. I would like to thank you very much for sticking through this entire webinar. The questions were very interesting, and I hope I was able to impart some useful information to you so that you can continue to use AgenaTrader and we can continue to improve it. Just one last tip, since this webinar actually took place a few months before this English recording, of course all the versions referred to have already been released. So for now I would like to say thanks very much, and just a tip about the CapTrader homepage. We also hold webinars regularly here, which you can find under Education here at CapTrader. Take a look if you wish, and of course I wish you much success with your trading. And if you have any further questions about AgenaTrader, feel free to post these in the AgenaTrader forum or ask the AgenaTrader team themselves directly. Thanks again, and until next time.